more on this, I'm joined here in the studio by Armen Georgian, France 24's international affairs commentator. Hi, Armen.
Hi.
Well, are these evacuation announcements part of the false flag operation that Western leaders have been warning will happen?
It seems more like part of information warfare than an actual false flag operation. There is actually this evening a warning about an alleged intent to create a false flag operation, a very concrete one. And this comes from Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, or DIU, which is this evening warning and asking residents of Donetsk not to take public transport because of the risk of terrorist attacks, which would then be used as a pretext for a military intervention. So that would, I stress conditionally, be an actual false flag operation. But at the moment, we're more in information warfare / disinformation territory than an actual false flag. And that point was underscored by the American ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE, who was speaking to our news program earlier this evening. Let's take a listen to him now. This is Michael Carpenter speaking.
It's possible that this is one of many operations, one of many disinformation operations that the Russian-led forces or that Russia will conduct over the coming days. This doesn't appear as of yet to be a false flag operation, although that could change in the coming hours or days. But certainly this disinformation that is being sown in the public arena, saying that there's an imminent attack and forcing people to evacuate, is nonsense. I think the Ukrainian side has said very clearly they have no intention of escalating the situation.
And just on that last point that he makes about the Ukrainian government insisting that it's not planning any sort of operation in the Eastern Territories, that is something that tonight the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces actually reiterated in a televised message. And the Ukrainian side keeps doing that more and more regularly in order to push back against this narrative from the other side about an imminent invasion from the West and therefore people need to evacuate and so on. So again, all of this part of information warfare narratives and counter-narratives.
Well, and amidst all this escalation in information warfare, as you've been saying, Russia has announced military drills for tomorrow, for Saturday, involving its strategic nuclear forces. Tell us about those drills.
So these are going to involve the Black Sea Fleet, which is based in Crimea. They involve Russia's strategic nuclear forces, which it does involve in drills once a year. But of course, these come in a particularly tense moment. And, the fact that nuclear forces will be on show is obviously intended to send a signal. I would have thought perhaps slightly less to Ukraine, in the sense that Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons. It gave them up 30 years ago, actually. But perhaps more as a message to NATO, some of whose members do have nuclear weapons, and NATO, of course, having reinforced its footprint on what it calls its eastern flank in Eastern Europe. So it's part of this sort of showdown, in a sense, between Russia and NATO in a broader sense. And also we saw today the continuation of military drills between Russia and Belarus, which have been going on for a few days now, but we saw a very public show of unity between the two presidents, Lukashenko and Putin, again underscoring this coming together of interests, political, military, and economic, between the two states. So all of this applying, in a sense, new pressure points, both on Ukraine, but also, I suppose, on the West as it tries to sort of come to terms with this whole situation.
All right, Armen Georgian, thanks for that analysis. France 24's international affairs commentator with me here in the studio for that analysis on the latest in the Ukraine crisis.